Glory to Jesus Christ. Slava Isusu Christu. 榮耀歸俾耶穌基督. My name is Justin C. I'm a visiting assistant professor of Asian American Studies at Northwestern University in Evanston, Illinois, just north of Chicago. And it gives me great pleasure to be answering the invitation of my friends who organized this screening of 10 years in Vancouver. I'm sorry I can't be with you today in Vancouver in person, but my friends tell me that I have been invited to reflect with you all the same because of the work that I did as the lead editor of a book titled Theological Reflections on the Hong Kong Umbrella Movement. The Umbrella Movement, as many of you will know, was a 79-day protest occupation of key political and economic sites in Hong Kong that demanded genuine universal suffrage, the right of every Hong Kong citizen and resident to vote in the elections for the chief executive and also for legislative council members, for candidates that the people themselves would nominate, people who would not have to be nominated by the Beijing central government, respecting the autonomy that was enshrined in Hong Kong Basic Law, known as one country, two systems. By the end of the Hong Kong Umbrella Movement, this one country, two systems framework had already been called into question. In fact, it had been called into question even before the Umbrella Movement. But now the questions in Hong Kong swirl around what exactly this autonomy would look like. And there are various disagreements and even fissures and divisions about what autonomy, how much, and how. 10 years is a sort of reflection of this. It's a film, as you will see, about a possible dystopian future for Hong Kong, a Hong Kong that does not have autonomy and does not have democracy. And despite the various disagreements that people in Hong Kong and people even in your audience may have, it's certainly a very good discussion point for that kind of thing. Now, I suppose when people invite an academic such as myself, they expect people like me to be experts, to be able to give a model for how you are to reflect on the Umbrella Movement and how to reflect on 10 years. That's not what we even did in the book. In the book, we gathered 4 theologians from Hong Kong from various theological approaches. We had one Catholic social teaching practitioner. We had a feminist and queer theologian. We had a Protestant liberation theologian, and we had an evangelical whose specialty was studying the New Testament. And what he did was he read what he called the text before the text, the world in front of the text, which was Hong Kong, the context in which people read the Bible. These are very different theological approaches, and our 4 authors and myself sometimes get into disagreements in the book. We don't present one model. Instead, we reflect as persons. At times even from the streets, at times even unprofessionally. You know, the quality of this video, my friends asked me to make this video from my home. And I have to say that the quality of this video perhaps demonstrates the spirit in which we performed this task. It is unprofessional, it is unscripted, it is unedited. And that is probably the same way that we approach it in the book, and perhaps the same way that you will be approaching theological reflection in your context as well. Theological reflection does not have to be based on your expertise. It doesn't have to be based on professional articulation, and it doesn't have to be, you don't even have to be from Hong Kong. Even I am not from Hong Kong. I am a Chinese American. I'm what they call a jokseng, a hollow bamboo, somebody who is Chinese, but selectively retains the culture because I grew up in North America. I've been to Hong Kong for my research, but my home is in North America. I'm honored whenever Hong Kong people let me play along, because truly I am not from Hong Kong, and yet I have edited a book on Hong Kong. If theological reflection doesn't have to be professional, if theological reflection doesn't have to be eloquent, if theological reflection is in fact grasping for the impossible, stumbling over words, how is it to be done? The way that we proceed in the book is a method that has been identified by theologians of liberation called see, judge, act. The reason we use theologies of liberation is because when people talk about democracy in Hong Kong, when people talk about autonomy in Hong Kong, when people talk about how they want to have self-determination, to choose their own candidates, to choose a future for Hong Kong, it indicates that this is not the case right now. It indicates that perhaps even though Hong Kong is no longer a British colony since 1997, it remains stuck in a colonial mentality nonetheless. Perhaps it even is in a colonized situation even now, as some of the authors in our book say. In this milieu, how do we do theological reflection? We see. First, we see. What are the conditions in Hong Kong? What are the material conditions in Hong Kong? What is this ideological mess in Hong Kong? What are all the things that are going on in Hong Kong? Just all of our various data points. Then we judge. What is God doing in Hong Kong? What are Christians doing? What perhaps is the supernatural underpinning? What is providing the power for the various authorities and establishments that are there? And then we act. Action takes place in a network of what we call solidarity. Solidarity means that there are a lot of different people with a lot of different approaches and a lot of different flaws who disagree with each other, but agree based on seeing and judging that they need to act. This is what, as we say in the end of the book, this is what the Brazilian educator Paulo Freire called the pedagogy of the oppressed. Pedagogy of the oppressed is a teaching to people in colonized situations where they are not even treated as persons who get to do things in history. First, what happens is they become conscious. They become conscious of their own consciousness, the way that they have been colonized. And then they get to speak the word about the world. They get to speak their own word about the world, not some colonial overlord, not some establishment, not some word that some expert told them to speak, but their own word about their own world. That is what it means to act. That is what theological reflection is. And in your situation, in Vancouver, you will be reflecting based on the film 10 Years. This is a perfect opportunity for you to exercise see, judge, act. Watch the film. Judge. What are Christians doing in Hong Kong? What is God perhaps doing? How is the Spirit acting in unexpected ways? And then act. Speak the word about your world in solidarity with people who might have different words to describe this. Have a real conversation. I look forward to the discussions that will come from this. I think it will be very productive for you and your churches and also for the world. Indeed, Hong Kong and Vancouver are very connected cities. In speaking the word about the world, which for you would probably be between Vancouver and Hong Kong, whether or not you are Chinese, whether or not you are from Hong Kong, whether or not you are a Jokseng, the word about the world that you speak about Hong Kong in a city that is so connected to Hong Kong, which is Vancouver. That word is a word of reflection. And because you will be conscious of your own consciousness and able then to speak the word about the world, that is the first step in the act of liberation. I look forward to hearing much about your conversation. Glory to Jesus Christ. Slava Isusu Christu. 榮耀歸俾耶穌基督。